You're in the game. But you're a player, you're not the game. And I believe that what religious stories attempt to teach people, among very many other things, is that you're not the bloody game, and you're not the chaos of defeat. You're the player. And you play many games. And the meaning is in the playing. And it's not a platitude. That is actually where the meaning is, and the meaning is real. And so then the question is, the more fundamental question is that meaning real enough to protect you from cynicism and nihilism? And the answer to that is, you have to figure that out for yourself. Because no one can tell you that. But the stories can show you the way, so to speak, which is why they're there.
When you said the quote about religion protect you from having a religion experience, what does that mean? What's a religion experience?
So, Dostoevsky's in the prison after getting arrested by the Tsar's men. And then at 6 in the morning, after a couple of weeks in his cell, they take him out into the courtyard and shoot him with blanks. Yeah, that moment when he's standing there before he's going to be shot, that's a religious experience. And the thing is, it overwhelmed him to such a degree that it basically, well, it gave him epilepsy. It's like there's a reason, say, that in the Old Testament, God is represented as the burning bush. It's like, don't get too close to that stuff. It's too much. The reality that transcends your models. Forget about personified representations of the deity for the time being. The reality that transcends your models is sufficient so that if you're exposed to it in an untrammeled manner, it will hurt you. It might destroy you. And it's not a trivial sort of objective experience. It's like the awe that a rat feels when it's trapped in the corner by a very large cat. Its hair stands up. You know, when you feel awe, what happens? Your hair stands on end. Yeah, well, there's a reason for that. It's like the remnants of a prey response. So,
could it also be enlightenment?
Yeah, but who wants that? You know, because your New Age types and your Joseph Campbells, they say, well, you know, enlightenment, it's all good. It's like, forget that. Believe me, if it was all good, people would be doing it. It's not all good. And that's one of the major differences, say, between the Jungians and the New Age people. The New Age people say, follow your bliss. It's like, yeah, right. The Jungians say, look, follow what you're interested in. It will take you places you do not want to go. And you're not getting anywhere till you go those places. And so everyone takes one look and says, hey, no, that theory's wrong. It's like, it's not wrong. It's just very, very difficult. So enlightenment is down first and then up. And the more enlightened you want to get, the more you go down before you go up.
So enlightenment will be you passing that religious experience?
That's a harder question. I think part of what enlightenment is not hiding behind the shields of your tentative belief systems. That's one way of thinking about it. Another way of thinking about it, I think, is that if you're engaged in a conversation with someone with whom you disagree, the more you're enlightened, the more you'll listen to them. Because otherwise you have to prove to them that the way you look at the world is correct. Well, that's not an enlightened stance. That's a dogmatic and totalitarian stance. It's like, I'm right, here's why. It's like, fine. Except, if I'm right, I already know what I'm right about. And if you disagree with me, there's always the possibility that you know something I don't. Like, horrifying as that possibility is. So listening to you would be a good idea. And so then another way of thinking about that is, and you can think about this yourselves. What's your friend? What you know or what you don't know? And part of identifying with the process of transformation instead of the stages of it is to understand that what you don't know is a more reliable friend than what you know. First of all, there's a lot of it. You're not going to run out. And second, every time you encounter it successfully, the world becomes a more comprehensible place and you become a more powerful force. So, you know, you could be running around all the time looking for little things that you don't know. Makes you tough and awake. And if you're tough and awake, maybe you don't have to believe things to make sense out of life. Maybe your life is so damn rich that you think, yeah, well, you know, suffering, disease, death, tyranny, all that. It's like, yeah, well, I can deal with that. I don't want to wish it away, even though I'd rather it wasn't there. That's not the point. It's like, I can have my eyes open and see that and still think, no, this is worth continuing.
Would you say that the default position is the desire to invest in a state? And then would you training?
Oh yeah, well through experience and training, yeah, because I mean, think about it this way, it's like you guys just don't have enough life to figure everything out for yourselves. You know, forget it, you can't do it. Life's too complicated and you're too short. Your life is too short and you're not that smart, you know, and so unless you have guidance, obviously, people have to be socialized. You know, they have to be socialized or they're just ruined. The question is, what's the end product of the socialization? One is, well, nihilistic totalitarian, you know, the other is the person who has one foot in order and one foot in chaos. And that's a better place to be because the world isn't just order and it's not just chaos.
So then given that this training was that if our scientific conceptualization of the world has underwritten our wisdom traditions such that we're not getting that training, would you default to the stance that over time it would compound towards?
Well, I think that's what happened in the 20th century, and that's what we're going to take a look at. Like part of the I talked to you guys about Nietzsche and his announcement at the end of the 19th century. You know, okay, so what he was announcing is, oh no, our new mode of thinking has invalidated our old modes of thinking, and that's not. It's like a mass. It's like a murder of the most valuable thing you can imagine. That was his perspective, and then his observation was, look out, because when something of that magnitude dies, there's a big void, and something's going to take its place. So what took its place? Well, it's pretty obvious. I mean, communist totalitarianism took its place. That was pretty much half the planet. We haven't quite, you know, scrapped all the problems that were associated with that. And then there's widespread nihilism and like a pathological form of relativism. So, and for Nietzsche, those were the two options. It's like, where else do you have to go? Well, that's what happened, and it wasn't good. And I think, you know, it's like, one of the things that Viktor Frankl said about his clients, his clinical clients, and Frankl was a psychiatrist who'd been through the concentration camps, you know, he said that very frequently the problem that his clients came to him about was the problem of meaning. To the degree that you think that existence is unbearable because of its meaningless structure and its implicit suffering, it's going to be a big chunk of your psyche that's wandering down genocidal and apocalyptic lanes. Because if it's pointless misery, why not put an end to it? And you know, if you don't think that people are trying to figure that out all the time, you're just not paying any attention, because people are trying to figure that out all the time. So, and if you read the Brothers Karamazov, I think, is the best example of this. You know, Dostoevsky has a figure in the Brothers Karamazov whose name is Ivan, and Ivan's a pretty vicious character. He's smart as can be, he's good looking, he gets along well with people, he's, you know, he's debonair, suave, and he's a committed nihilist, and he has rational arguments to back up his nihilism, like, that are the most powerful ones Dostoevsky could invent. And so they're powerful enough, like, he's done as good a job as anybody needs to. And he puts forth a vicious argument for the pointlessness and essential immorality of existence. Well, maybe he's right. Maybe not. That's the question. So part of what I've been trying to figure out is, how could it be possible that Ivan is wrong? And if so, why? And that's what I'm trying to tell you, is that these things that we think of as archaic superstitions are not theories about objective reality, and they're not archaic, and they're not superstitious. And not only that, you already live by their dictates in one form or another, whether you know it or not, and the old stories are perennially attractive to you, and you need them. You can't live without them. So what I'm trying to do, what I've tried to do, is to figure out how they can be true.